Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us again today. My name is Michael Weir. I'm a technical marketing engineer in cybersecurity here at Ingram Micro with another Cybersecurity 101, still about firewalling, this one going to be part 2. Our agenda for the day, first we're going to review what is a firewall. We're going to talk a little bit about how does a UTM firewall work. We're going to say, so, why did you do a video, Mike, on just this one thing? And then review what it is we said in the video about a UTM firewall. So, to review from our previous video, Security 101 Firewalls, Part 1, what is networking? So networking is the process of getting information, in this case the example we're using, from you to your coworker, though really it could be information over distance from you to anyone else. And we've been using the example of an email going from you to your coworker over the internet. That is the thing we have called networking. And then last time we broke it down to between you and the internet, sort of ignoring your coworker, to say, what is a firewall? And a firewall was this thing that sat between information that was going out and then coming into you, and some of it was good and some of it was bad. The bad traffic was tossed and the good traffic came in. And right towards the end of the last right towards the end of the last video, we defined what a UTM firewall was, which was a firewall that was able to access more information inside of the packets that were going through, the information that was going through, and do blocking or filtering, that sort of thing, based on a lot more criteria than just source, destination, the things an old firewall would do. We get application control, intrusion prevention, gateway antivirus, web filtering, all that kind of thing. So we're going to look a little bit further into how a UTM firewall works here today by looking at something called decryption. Now, decryption is an important thing to understand for our modern firewalls because there's two types of traffic generally out there that we're getting on the web, and there's tons of different protocols on the web. Before somebody says something in the comments about, you're just talking about one. This is the majority of your web traffic. Other applications do other things, but there's unencrypted traffic, which would be your HTTP, and encrypted traffic, which would be your HTTPS, otherwise known as SSL traffic. And the encrypted traffic has a certificate at each end of it that has been used to encrypt, or in other words, scramble or obfuscate, whatever you want to call it, the traffic, so that only the person receiving it, being you on your little laptop, and the web server sending it, or whatever service is sending it on the other end, on the internet, can read it. If it's intercepted in the middle and someone doesn't have that certificate, then it's just going to be gibberish. They're not going to understand what's going on. And of course, unencrypted traffic is just playing back and forth. Anybody who peeps in can see it. So there's a problem. Just because something's encrypted, just because it's HTTPS, doesn't mean it's necessarily good or secure. It just means that someone who is an interloper in the middle wouldn't be able to see it. So if we look at the HTTP traffic, it's very easy for the firewall to say, all right, we're just going to look at it when it comes by. When it comes in, we're going to preload it, or we're going to examine the contents. We're going to look at the packets, what have you. If it's good, we'll send it on. However, if the certificates are still residing just on both ends, the firewall has no visibility into that HTTPS traffic. And believe it or not, that's how a plurality of today's firewalls configured in small, medium businesses, small enterprises, even some medium enterprises, hopefully not large, that's how they work. They're only looking at HTTP traffic. They're just letting HTTPS go by because it's encrypted. Because in order to look at it, the firewall has to do this. It has to store the certificate from the website, so it and the website are communicating, and has to issue re-encrypt it and issue a new certificate to you, the endpoint, so then you and the firewall are encrypting and decrypting from each other. Effectively, it's repeating the process twice. Encrypting and decrypting once, web to firewall, encrypting and decrypting once, firewall to endpoint. And that is called, I'm sure someone's going to debate me on this too, that's called being a proxy. Reason being, to the website, you're just an endpoint. It doesn't know the firewall's an endpoint, doesn't know your laptop's an endpoint. You're just an endpoint to the thing sending this information. That means, though, that the firewall is the one that's actually loading, loading and unloading the web pages in the middle in your stead. Thus, it's called a proxy. So then we say, and the note I'm going to explain on this is, why does a UTM firewall cost more than just a regular firewall? And the reason is, it takes a lot of processing power to do what I just talked about. So since there's presumably a ton of people behind the firewall, and they're loading tons of HTTPS websites, because that's what almost everything is these days, every time one of those is loaded and those packets go through, the firewall has to de-encrypt and re-encrypt those packets. And whereas your laptop can do it fine, because it's only doing it for one web page, the firewall is effectively doing it for everybody that's behind it. Every time somebody loads a page, it has to crack open those packets and re-encrypt them and send them back out. It doesn't mean it's preloading all the web pages. It's not an isolator. It's not rendering or something like that. but it's still having to process all that information, so it needs to have the processing power to process all that information. So then we get into a place where a lot of people buy just a cheap firewall, a prosumer firewall, or a small business firewall, try to put it in a bigger environment, and suddenly the throughput's going through the floor, and they're saying, man, networking people are like, man, I really don't like those security guys. Those networking security guys are making my network run like sludge. I want to speed it up. I'm going to turn off security features, or I'm going to do this, that, or the other thing, because the firewall has not been properly sized for the situation. I bring this up now because as we talk in the future videos about more security services and things like that we can deliver, things like the attack surface, endpoint, security, that kind of stuff, as I talk about that, we need to understand that the most basic pieces you can have in an architecture are going to be a firewall and an endpoint antivirus. And if you don't have an adequately sized firewall, and you don't have a functioning firewall, even because you turn so much stuff off, your whole environment's going to be vulnerable. So right sizing the firewall and not being cheap and not spending money there, or even worse, getting a firewall that can't do HTTPS decryption and re-encryption on the current protocols, that's going to create a hole for everything else. It's in best case scenario, it's just going to throw more work on your other services. Worst case scenario, it's going to be a big problem for you. So a quick review. Last time we talked about, and this time we emphasized, that firewalls control traffic across a network. UTM firewalls add IPS, gateway AV, web filtering, and there's definitions of those three we had from last time. And I said modern firewalls must decrypt SSL, otherwise known as HTTPS traffic, to be accurate, makes them a proxy, takes more processing power, increases cost per megabit per second. Your security is not the place you want to cheap out on. Actually, if you look across the news, there's a bunch of luminaries and thought leaders and CEOs and CIOs and CISOs and things who have said recently that going into 2023, because right now we're talking October 2022, going into 2023, that's one place their budget's not going to be cut is information security. So cost per megabit per second, that's why I bring that up. Anyway, here are some contacts for this. There's my information again as presenter. We do have a page, HTTPS, hey, look at that, using the content already. SecurityLionCard.com that is going to show you all the vendors that we sell here at Ingram Micro. You can get some additional information at our ImagineX site. We do have a general question line. And thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to realize the promise of technology. Have a good day.